My wife and in-laws are excluding me from my son's birthday party, which I paid for. So, I canceled everything and planned a separate celebration. A few months ago, I started planning my son Emiliano's birthday party. He was about to turn 8, and I wanted it to be an unforgettable day for him. We arranged everything in a big venue, with inflatable games, clowns, everything a kid could dream of. I paid for everything, literally every detail. I was excited because it was going to be his first big party with his school friends. But as the date approached, I started noticing that something was changing. My wife, Valeria, began to exclude me from important decisions. At first, I didn't think much of it, but over time, I realized that her parents, my in-laws, were taking on a more central role. They weren't even asking for my opinion anymore. The guest list, the menu, the decorations, they decided everything. The worst part was that whenever I tried to give my opinion, they made me feel like an outsider. My father-in-law, in particular, looked at me as if I wasn't part of the family, as if I wasn't Emiliano's father. One day, while they were working on the guest list, I noticed something that made me snap. None of my friends or family were included. When I confronted Valeria about it, her response was cold and direct. "It's better if they don't come. We don't want them to bother my parents." Excuse me? This was my son's birthday, and I couldn't invite the people I wanted? But what hurt the most was when Emiliano, my own son, asked me sadly, "Why don't my grandparents want you at the party?" He had noticed. He knew something was wrong. He told me he didn't like staying with his maternal grandparents because they always spoke badly about me when I wasn't around, and that he'd rather spend his birthday with me. That broke my heart. My own son was witnessing how they disrespected me, and I didn't know how to shield him from that toxicity. I decided to confront Valeria once more. I told her it wasn't fair what they were doing, that they were excluding me from the party I paid for, and that Emiliano wanted to spend more time with me. Her response? "It's our son's party, but my parents also have the right to enjoy it their way." That was the last straw. At that moment, I made a radical decision. If they didn't want me at the party, then there would be no party. I canceled the venue, the clowns, the games. It was over. Meanwhile, I started planning something special, just for Emiliano and me. Something that would truly make him happy. He didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of adult tensions. When I told Emiliano what I had decided, his eyes lit up. He hugged me and said, "Dad, I don't care about the party. I just want to be with you." So I suggested something. "Instead of a party, why don't we spend the day at the amusement park you love so much?" The day of his birthday arrived. Valeria and her parents were still preparing everything for the party, unaware that none of what they had planned would happen. Meanwhile, Emiliano and I were at the park, laughing and having fun, far away from all the drama. But then I received an unexpected call. The number on the screen was Valeria's. I hesitated before answering, knowing this probably wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. Emiliano was still full of joy, laughing in the background as he climbed onto one of the tallest rides in the park. With a deep breath, I picked up, "Hello, you canceled everything?" Valeria's voice was a mix of surprise and fury. "Yes, I canceled it. It made no sense to keep paying for a party I was being excluded from. Emiliano and I are at the park now. He's having a great time." In case you're wondering, there was a moment of silence on the other end. I imagine she was processing what I had just said. "How could you do this, Lucas? My parents are furious. They're here with the guests, waiting, and you've ruined everything." Her voice grew louder, clearly trying to make me feel guilty. "Don't start with that, Valeria. You and your parents are the ones who ruined everything. You completely cut me out of my son's party, the party I paid for. I'm not going to fund a spectacle to stroke your parents' egos while they treat me like an outsider. This wasn't just about you, Lucas. My parents were excited, and Emiliano deserved this party." She began, but I cut her off. "Emiliano didn't even want this party, Valeria. He told me he'd rather be with me because he's tired of hearing your parents talk badly about me behind my back. Did you know that? Do you even realize how much that hurts? He understands exactly what's going on." There was another silence, this time longer. Valeria seemed lost for words, but then I heard my father-in-law's voice in the background, clearly irate. He shouted something like, "Give me the phone," and then he was on the line. "Lucas, how dare you do this? You humiliated our family, canceling a party without even telling us? You're an ungrateful fool." "Ungrateful?" I snapped, my patience wearing thin. "I paid for everything, every single cent, and yet you all thought you could ignore me completely. This isn't about you. It's about Emiliano, my son, whom you're using to boost your own egos. You have no right to speak to us like that," he roared. "We're his grandparents, and we have just as much right to decide as you do, right?" You have rights when you respect the child's father, which you never have. And you know what? You don't deserve my respect either. Emiliano and I are far away from your toxicity now, and I plan to keep it that way. I hung up before he could respond. My heart was racing, and I took a moment to collect myself. Emiliano ran over, holding a giant cotton candy, his face glowing with happiness. "Are you okay, Dad?" he asked, frowning slightly. "I'm fine, champ," I replied, kneeling to his level. "Today is your day. That's all that matters." We spent the rest of the day at the park, completely ignoring the constant calls from Valeria and her parents. When night fell, we had dinner at Emiliano's favorite restaurant and went home exhausted but happy. However, the peace didn't last long. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. It was an email from Valeria. As I opened it, I found a long, accusatory message. She blamed me for ruining Emiliano's relationship with his grandparents, called me selfish and immature, and threatened to fight for full custody of Emiliano. I laughed in disbelief. Did she seriously think she had any chance? Emiliano had made it clear how much he preferred being with me. But her threat was a wake-up call. I couldn't underestimate how far she and her parents might go to hurt me. Later, when I picked up Emiliano from school, I noticed something was off. He was quieter than usual, looking sad. I asked him what had happened, and he told me his mom had taken him out earlier for a special lunch with his grandparents, where they spent the whole time bad-mouthing me. "They said you're selfish, Dad, but I know it's not true." He hugged me tightly, and my heart broke. I decided it was time to act. I called my lawyer and explained everything. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Emiliano from this toxic environment. He didn't deserve to be a pawn in their ego-driven games. While waiting for the legal process to unfold, I focused on my time with Emiliano. I made it clear to him that, no matter what, he could always count on me. But deep down, I knew this battle was just beginning. Valeria and her parents wouldn't give up easily, and I had to be ready for whatever came next. What I didn't know was that they were already planning something even more drastic, something that would turn my world upside down. The next morning, I woke up determined to act. I had been patient for far too long, enduring things no one should have to tolerate. My priority was Emiliano, protecting him from the toxicity his mother and grandparents were imposing on him. I called my lawyer immediately, explaining the situation and emphasizing how they were not only excluding me as a father, but also using my son as an emotional pawn. He listened carefully and agreed that this was more than enough to file for divorce and, most importantly, fight for custody of Emiliano. "Lucas, the most important thing right now is to document everything. We need evidence to show that this environment is harmful to your son. Save messages, record conversations, and write down everything Emiliano says about how he feels with his mother and grandparents," he advised. I did exactly that. I saved all of Valeria's passive-aggressive messages, recorded our phone calls, and started keeping a detailed journal of every time Emiliano came back sad or told me something concerning about his grandparents. I even recorded conversations where my ex-in-laws blatantly insulted me. Meanwhile, Emiliano showed more and more signs of distress. One night, as I tucked him into bed, he looked at me with confusion in his eyes and asked, "Dad, why does Mom say you don't love me?" My heart shattered into pieces. How could Valeria stoop so low? I summoned all my strength to respond calmly. "That's not true, champ. I love you more than anything in the world. And no matter what anyone says, you will always be my priority." The next day, I decided to confront Valeria face to face. I arranged to meet her at a cafe near her house. When I arrived, she was already there, staring at her phone with that air of superiority that had always irritated me. "What do you want, Lucas?" she said, barely glancing up. "I want to make it clear that I'm not going to tolerate what you're doing to Emiliano anymore. It's unacceptable for you to use our son to try to hurt me." She laughed, a cold and dismissive sound. "Use him? Lucas, don't be dramatic. I'm just protecting Emiliano from you. You're not exactly a model of stability." "Stability?" I responded, my voice rising slightly, though I tried to keep my composure. "I'm the only one who truly puts Emiliano first. You and your parents are poisoning him against me. And the worst part is, he's starting to notice." She shook her head, feigning boredom. "What really hurts Emiliano is you always trying to be the hero." "He said that? Or is that something you've planted in his head?" The argument continued, but it became clear that Valeria had no intention of changing. Finally, I made my position clear. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to fight for custody of Emiliano. Her eyes finally showed something I hadn't seen in years: fear. "You won't win," she whispered. My parents have money connections. Emiliano will stay with me. We'll see, I said, walking out of the cafe without looking back. The legal process was long and exhausting. For months, my lawyer and I presented evidence of the toxic environment Valeria and her parents had created. Text messages, recorded calls, statements from teachers who noticed changes in Emiliano's behavior. Even Emiliano, during a session with a child psychologist, expressed that he felt safer and happier with me. Valeria tried to fight back. Her lawyers attempted to paint me as an unstable father obsessed with controlling Emiliano. But their arguments were easily dismantled. The judge was unimpressed with how Valeria and her parents had excluded my family from Emiliano's birthday party, or with the evidence showing how the grandparents cared more about their own pride than the child's well-being. On the day of the final decision, Valeria appeared confident, but I felt calm. When the judge began reading the verdict, every word confirmed what I already knew. Emiliano would stay with me. After reviewing all the evidence, it is clear to this court that the environment in the mother's household is detrimental to the emotional well-being of the child. Therefore, custody is awarded to the father, Lucas. The mother will have supervised visitation rights as determined by the court. Valeria screamed in the courtroom, accusing me of manipulating the system. Her parents were furious, their faces red with anger, threatening to appeal. But none of that mattered. Emiliano was finally safe. As we left the courtroom, I hugged my son tightly and promised him that our life would be different. No more manipulation, no more unnecessary drama, just peace and happiness. However, my ex-in-laws were not ready to accept defeat. A few days later, I received a threatening letter from them, accusing me of stealing their grandson and promising they would do everything in their power to fix the situation. I knew the battle wasn't over yet, but I was ready for whatever came next. The most important thing was that Emiliano was now where he wanted to be, with me, in a home where he could finally be a happy child. The following weeks were filled with judgmental looks, hostile messages, and inevitable gossip. Valeria and her family were determined to paint me as the villain in the story, the cruel man who stole Emiliano from his mother and grandparents. At first it bothered me, seeing the lies they spread, the baseless accusations, and their constant attempts to cast me as a monster was exhausting. But then, something changed within me. I realized it didn't matter what they thought or said. The only thing that truly mattered was Emiliano and the life we were building together. The first thing I did was create a warm and safe environment for him. I remodeled our new home, transforming his room into a space where he could feel free to be himself. I filled the walls with his favorite drawings. Together we installed shelves for his toys, and we created a special corner for his books and games. He helped me with every detail, and seeing him so excited about the changes reaffirmed my decision to fight for him. "Do you like it, champ?" I asked as he placed the last book on the shelf. "I love it, Dad. This really feels like home." Those words stayed with me. A real home, something he clearly hadn't felt before. Meanwhile, Valeria and her parents didn't miss an opportunity to interfere. Every supervised visit was an occasion for them to play the victims, complaining to Emiliano about how unfair I was and telling him he didn't understand how much they were suffering. But Emiliano, with his innocence and intelligence, seemed to see through more than they realized. "Dad, why does Mom say you took me away from her?" he asked one evening during dinner. "Because she's hurt, son. Sometimes people say things when they're sad, but that doesn't mean they're right," I answered, trying to be honest without dragging him into the conflict. He nodded thoughtfully and then changed the subject, excitedly talking about something he'd learned at school. His maturity impressed me, and I knew it was my responsibility to ensure he grew up without carrying the weight of adult conflicts. My family became an essential pillar during this time. My parents, who had been excluded from Emiliano's life for so long, now made it a point to be present at every important moment. They took him on outings, attended his school games, and even taught him how to cook small recipes. Watching Emiliano so connected to them was something I hadn't realized I needed until it happened. Meanwhile, Valeria and her parents continued their attempts to destabilize me. One afternoon, I received a message from her. "You might have fooled the judge, but everyone knows who you really are. Emiliano will see it one day." I deleted the message without replying. There was no room for that kind of toxicity in my life anymore. My focus was on Emiliano and the family we were rebuilding. Over time, I started noticing something. Valeria's visits became less frequent. Her parents, who had once tried to manipulate Emiliano at every opportunity, started appearing less and less. It was as if slowly, they were accepting that their influence over him was fading. Emiliano also seemed more at ease, more confident. One day, as I was driving him to school, he said something that caught me off guard. "Dad, I think they only like me because they want to use me against you." I stopped the car for a moment and looked at him. He was only 8 years old, yet he understood things that many adults never could. "That will never happen, son. You are loved for who you are, and no one has the right to use you to hurt someone else." He smiled, and I knew we were on the right path. As the months went by, the distance between Emiliano and his maternal family grew. He no longer felt comfortable during the supervised visits and even asked to see them less often. I respected his decision, knowing it was important for him to have autonomy over those relationships. Valeria continued to blame me for everything. According to her, I was the reason her life was falling apart. Her parents reinforced this narrative, telling anyone who would listen that I had stolen their grandson and destroyed their family. But I no longer cared. I learned to ignore the whispers and judgmental looks. They could think whatever they wanted. I knew the truth. Emiliano knew the truth. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Today, we live a quiet life. Emiliano is happy, surrounded by love and support. His relationship with my family is stronger than ever, and he's growing up to be a confident and secure child. As for Valeria and her parents, they remain stuck in the past, blaming everyone but themselves for the consequences of their actions. I, however, move forward, focused on my life and my son's happiness. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who sees me as the villain. The only opinion that truly matters is Emiliano's, and he knows he can always count on me, no matter what.